Thank you for joining me for this episode of Women Winning Divorce. My goal is to elevate your life and the way you are thinking so that you are best equipped to win at life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. And I would love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social and join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We want to bring you content that helps move your life forward. Women Winning Divorce is the place for an elevated conversation on how women can thrive during times of adversity in order to live their best life.
From being served to preparing for trial, Divorce 101
I'm an attorney,
will prepare you
entrepreneur,
end-to-end
author, and
for the
founder of
divorce
Florida Women's Law
process.
Group, the
I'm
only
Heather
divorce
Quick,
firm for
attorney
women
and
by
CEO
women.
of Florida Women's
I
Law
love
Group.
thinking big,
Join
thinking outside
us
the box,
over the next 6
creating
weeks
creative
to feel
solutions for
empowered
women and
and
empowering
educated
women
about
to
a
win in
complex
all
and
aspects
often
of their life.
challenging legal process.
Our approach at Florida Women's
Our
Law Group
online
is to
course
provide
is
women
designed to provide
with a
an
strategy
overview
to
of what
not
to
only
expect,
achieve their objectives,
what
but
to
win at
prepare
life.
for, and
I
offer
believe
guidance
that
you
what
may
may
need
show
to
up as
succeed
adversity
and
is
win
simply an
at life.
opportunity to change
Over
and improve
6
your
weeks
life.
of video and
In each
additional
episode,
resources,
I sit
we are
down with
confident
innovative
you will finish our
professionals and
course feeling
leaders who are
inspired
focused
and
on how you can be your best
Find
self
out more
before,
at
during, and after
floridawomenslawgroup.com
divorce. In these conversations, we are looking at how women can win at life.
Or call
I
us
have a
at
unique opportunity to meet women when they are at a transition period of life.
904-567-0121.
But that is only the beginning to becoming your best self and winning at life on your terms. With our guests, we enjoy the opportunity to explore ways all women can win and enhance their life, no matter where they are in their journey. Because divorce is just a point in life, not the end and not what defines you, rather a catalyst for your growth.
Welcome to today's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I'm joined by Paulette Rigo. She is a divorce coach, mediator, author, founder of the Better Divorce Academy, and director of divorce coaching and management at Divorce Right. Welcome to the show, Paulette.
Well, thank you so much for the gracious invitation, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, I'm really excited for our topic today because this is not anything we've touched on before, but what a great topic to have today. And so we're excited to talk about supporting employees going through the divorce process. I just think that's great, Paulette. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. I've never thought of it.
It has become a problem. Well, it is a problem that has become more on the radar. Divorce Right was founded by a clear study, a study after study, Heather, I don't mean to be all clinical about it, that proved that divorce costs companies millions of dollars. Why? Well, a certain percentage of every employee in that company, whether the company owner, management, and HR, ultimately, they're the ones that have to kind of deal with the people in the trenches, right? On a day-to-day basis, a certain percentage of those employees in the company will divorce. That's just a fact, right? Just like life. And how does it affect them? Well, more than companies realize, 8 to 10% of them will quit on a daily, on a yearly basis, based on the daily tasks that they now have to deal with above and beyond their work duties, right? And you and I both know what that looks like on the tasks that they have to endure during the case, whether they're able to amicably divorce and it's a relatively short process, or it's a trial and it goes on, lingers for years like mine. But those professionals and the company owners don't realize that those employees during that period of time, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, will also lose an average of 43% productivity during the period of time. Why? Well, they come in late, they leave early, not because they're bad people. They just got a lot on their plate. They stare at their computer, foaming at the mouth, with their eyes rolling back in their head, with mascara running down their face, hiding in the bathroom, or pretending everything's fine. Just everything's great, right? I'm fine. And they're very robotic because, well, they have to pretend they're okay. And many companies have become alerted due to HR asking, gee, do you mind us asking, why you're leaving, or, they start to politely and they're inappropriate. So not like, delving into their private life, but there's always sort of an outboarding process when somebody does in fact quit. And they were surprised to find that many of the answers were, well, I'm getting a divorce. I have to move. I have added responsibilities because now I have to pick up the kids at the bus every day, or, whatever their life situation is. So it has come on the radar. I'm happy to get into that more, but yeah, it's a big problem, and divorce right is the first to solve it.
Well, that is amazing. And so, so appropriate because, as a business owner myself, and, when you're looking at ways to support your employees, this is one way, and you serve that need. Now, Paulette, you speak often and openly about your own divorce journey and how it has guided and shaped your career path. Could you share with me and our listeners a little about your journey to where you are today?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the reasons that I'm doing this work, Heather. I didn't find this work, my dear. It found me. I had a degree in journalism. I worked in TV, radio, media. I ran a performing arts studio for 20 years. I ran the children's division of Ford Models. I was a birth doula, a lactation consultant, a yoga teacher trainer, a macrobiotic chef, Ayurvedic consultant. You get the picture. Like, I did a lot of stuff. And the law and divorce was not on that checklist, if you heard correctly. I got married at a very young age, met my husband at 17, got married at the ripe old age of 22, and realized that I didn't marry a man, I married a family, as many do. It isn't just the spouse that comes along with the tuxedo or the white gown, or whatever color you choose. Mine was pink, actually. I looked like Glinda, the Good Witch. You also inherit a family, and they really had a different vision of what our marriage should look like. And I kept quiet about it for a long time. I put on the happy face and, kept the house clean and entertained and took care of the kids and worked and just kept to myself about my feelings. But 21 years later into the marriage, I finally got the courage to say, this just isn't healthy. This isn't working. I did file for divorce. I was the brave one. I was the plaintiff. He was the defendant, and the rest. But, 97% of divorce cases do not go to trial. I didn't even know you could have a trial. Who knows? Who knows that? Like, what? No one killed anyone. So the 3% that do go to trial, only 1% of that 3% goes to the appeals court. And unfortunately, you're looking at her. I am the 0.001% that endured an 8.5 year, yes, I did say that, 8.5 year divorce case that also included a 12-day trial that took place over 9 months. And my ex did not like the decision of the judge. So he appealed it on 17 counts. And that additional state Supreme Appellate Court process took 4 years. And it nearly destroyed me and my family, cost more money than I want to admit, and tied up my life, totally consumed my life. But because my case was rare, what's the word? Unprecedented now, that's the word we use. Hundreds of people started to reach out to me because of my case. And of course, we know that good news travels fast, Heather, but bad news travels really fast. So, social media then wasn't what it is now, but I started to get messages and emails and phone calls, and actually people called me and rang my door and, say, hey, can we meet for coffee? Some of these people I knew, some I didn't, and thank goodness it didn't all happen in one day. But over a period of time, this kept happening over again. And the conversation would be, I heard about your case, but it would always end up with, can you help me? And I would say, no, I can barely help myself. But after much reconsideration and heart-to-heart with my attorney, he said, Paulette, you owe it to give back. You have experienced what 99% of people never will. You have a unique perspective of divorce that can help them avoid making mistakes. And he wasn't saying that I made mistakes, although I did. He said, you think judiciously, like you have that mind, but you act like an attorney. And I don't mean by practicing law, but like procedurally, understanding like what comes next and to consider options and feeling like that process that people go through that is so overwhelming. But I also feel like a therapist. I have the empathy and the compassion of understanding the psychological, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, shall I say, the mushy emotional side of divorce. But on the other hand, I really do understand the judicial, legal, financial, residential, lending, insurance, taxes side of divorce, because there really are two different worlds when it comes to divorce. So my own personal experience propelled me into this work. So here I am.
Well, that is quite the journey. And so from this experience, you built the Better Divorce Academy, and then have had heavy involvement in divorce right. Can you share with us what each company is doing and how they're different?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. It's one I get often. Think of it as this way: Better Divorce Academy, or Better Divorce, because there's Better Divorce Academy, Blueprint, Summit, podcast, blog, and Better Divorce, with that word after it. It's more of the personal solution to divorce, where people can come to the website, listen to a podcast. You don't listen to blogs yet, although maybe that's next. Listen to a podcast, read a blog, watch a video, download an ebook, take a quiz, gather a lot of knowledge. It doesn't become wisdom till you apply it, but start to culminate facts and things, data, tools, resources that you need at that early stage of overwhelm and confusion. Many people come to me 10 or 12 times on the website or the podcast or another tool before they even reach out for help for whatever they need. So the reason I created Better Divorce Academy is, well, and why an academy? There's a lot to learn, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want you, we had to get schooled in divorce, right? Not the law per se, because of course people are coming from all different states and even different countries.
Right.
But the better part, I would have named it Best Divorce Academy, but the only best divorce is, well, not to have one. But
right.
Many people do. It is a solution to many people's dilemmas and dysfunctional, high conflict or conflicting cases. So Better Divorce Academy is that sort of home where you can find out about private mediation, certified divorce coaching, understand services and tools and resources that you might need for the personal world of divorce. I don't deal with any of the corporate, but Divorce Right is the opposite. It's the corporate solution to divorce, or dare I say, the business side. As we started the conversation with, many business owners, whether you're a small business owner and maybe you have 5 to 50 employees, or you're Amazon and you have 1.2 million, I think that's the latest statistic on them, a certain percentage of those employees that you have every year will divorce. And how does that affect your bottom line? In fact, on the website Divorce Right Inc., we have a cost calculator. And if you go to that cost calculator, it asks you a few questions about the number of employees that you have, the average salary that is paid to those employees. Now you have to go with an average. We can't put in every individual employee's salary. And then the cost to recruit, train, or even ramp up their competency to make it to where they're self-sufficient in the company. Because every time a company loses an employee, not only is there the void of filling that hole, now you have to go through the HR recruitment process of filling that hole. You have to train them to a place where they're not I hate to use the word burden, but to the other employees, right? Because now they're self-sufficient, and the other employees aren't kind of picking up the slack of
right,
when
there's that period of time. You can only train I mean, you have to train for a period of time and the workload has to get distributed. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They're a burden. They know they're doing more.
Yeah, it's a hard word, so forgive me for not the word burden, but they have to pick up the slack, right?
Right, yeah.
And if you lose one employee, well, okay, it's not great, but let's say if you've got 1,000 employees, and well, as we know, the statistic is over time, 50% of marriage-ish ends in divorce. Sometimes I hear 30, sometimes I hear, I don't know what it is now with all the latest and greatest numbers coming in, but first marriage is rumored around 50, second marriage around 60, third marriage around 70. There's always going to be a period of time in every business where employees are divorcing. And the studies also prove that for 3 to 5 years, the employee is being affected by the divorce. This isn't like a one and done. One day, 1 week, 1 month, or even 1 year. Some people manage divorce with dignity and grace and wisdom and handle it quite well. I wasn't one of them, but there are those people that do it. Maybe they all have divorce coaches, but there are those people that fall apart, and rightfully so. It's incredibly difficult to go through divorce, and the impact on the business, their bottom line with financial loss, and also their talent. And in this world of people quitting, what do we call it? Quiet quitting, or, there's other rumors in the corporate world of the fact that people just don't want to work and hold on to jobs anymore as much as they did. So we have to also, as an employer, battle the not wanting to have a job in the first place or working from home. And now you've got the added stress and impact of an employee going through divorce. It's going to cost you a lot of money.
So does your Better Divorce Academy, does that get hired by the Divorce Right? Or do you run your academy, but you also, or used to work for the Divorce Right, or still do, I guess, because they're different entities, but yet cover a lot of the same thing for individuals. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm the sole proprietor, LLC, owner, run. You can put in whatever word you want of Better Divorce Academy. I do have other professionals that work with me because naturally I'm not an attorney. I'm not a fiduciary. I'm not a realtor. I'm not a mortgage professional. So I work with the correct family law attorneys in their, shall we say, county, wherever they live, helping them. I work with financial advisors, or CDFAs, as they're called in the divorce world, and CDREs, which are the real estate expert, and the CDLPs, which are the mortgage experts. We don't realize that most people don't know, but divorce is a $50 billion industry. And it is, there are a lot of professionals out there that some people really need them all. Some don't need many at all.
So, just the Divorce Right, that's not something that's kind of separate. It's not what you do now, right? That's just a company that serves corporations.
No, I do work. I'm the director of coaching and case management for Divorce Right.
Got it.
Forgive me for omitting that. I am an employee employee of Divorce Right, whereas I'm the CEO of Better Divorce Academy.
I just wanted to clarify that for our listeners because I wasn't sure, and I know that they are different, but I wanted to understand how, because, when we get back, we've got to take our first break, but we're really going to talk about different ways that you can support your employees through divorce. And, for our listeners, we'll be right back, but that'll be important for you because you may not recognize that this may exist in your company. And even if it doesn't, I think it'll be good to hear the kind of support that you could need, and maybe ways, if your company's not providing it, you can get it for yourself. But I hope our listeners, you're enjoying our show. And if you are, and this is helpful thus far, we would ask that you leave us a 5-star review, which will help others hear or find our content. We will be right back. Well, we are back from our break. And again, today I'm joined by Paulette Rigo, and we are discussing why it's necessary to support employees through divorce. specifically as a business owner or upper management. And before we took our break, I mentioned, because for many of our listeners, you may think, well, I'm an employee. I'm not a business owner. However, I think that if you listen to this, you'll recognize that maybe you're the one going through the divorce. And these are some things that that maybe you should look for getting support on if your organization is not providing it. But, we talked, Paulette, you mentioned, the statistics on how many people, in the workforce are getting divorced, but how can you offer support, not even just as a business owner, but as a professional and a coworker to someone going through a divorce?
I always start with listening. You have to be an empathetic, compassionate ear that does not give advice, but also feels like a safe container. Many people keep divorce to themselves in their own little, what I call private Idaho. It's a quote from a B-52 song. If you're as old as I am, you'll know what I'm talking about. But this little world we live in, right, of where our thoughts and our feelings and our memories and our fears are in our head. And we're afraid of discussing it because we might be judged, or it's embarrassing, or we feel guilty, or lots of other words you might want to add. Everybody's different. So employees go to work because they got to go to work and got to pay the bills. And, whether you own the business, it also applies to owners. And sometimes companies close, merge, get sold because the employee is going through a divorce, or a partner in a firm or in practice. So maybe there's 4 heads in the company and one is going through divorce. Those 3 have to pick up the slack. Well, this one suddenly is in court all the time with hearings and pretrial conferences and all kinds of depositions or certain tasks that they have to adhere to during the process. But if you're an employee and you work at a company, chances are when you onboarded, you have an HR company, a part of the company, right? A division or I guess that's how it's called now. And most people don't also realize that most companies don't have their own HR company. They farm them to other HR companies. So that's a whole nother conversation. But HR companies are broken down into hiring and onboarding, and they have many different tasks that they take care of. But one of them is noticing differences, or just being that ombudsman or that person that's kind of in the trenches with the employees. But they're not trained in divorce. It isn't something that HR professionals get training in. So we then step in as a benefit that companies provide for pennies on the dollar to employees if and when they need it. We provide divorce sensitivity training and awareness training for the HR departments. That isn't what I do. We have a whole department for that, right? But then
I ask you this. I do want to ask, because I think this will help with what you're talking about, though. Because let's just talk about the employee going through a divorce and their decision making. Does that get skewed? And that how does that affect them, especially in decision making as an employee, as a person? But we're talking within the workplace, right?
Right. It's like a multifaceted conversation we're having, because we don't want to just speak in hypotheticals, Heather, because, there's lots of hypotheticals in divorce. How long have you been married? Do you have children? Do you own a business together? There's all different little nuances of your case that may or may not pertain to this particular conversation about the corporate solution to divorce. But all aspects of people's lives are changed because of divorce. I always say that divorce is another word for change. If you think about it, not to oversimplify, but there's really no part of your life that stays the same. And that's exactly why Divorce Right exists, because you now have a thinking partner that's safe. If you keep it to yourself and you don't share anything, which many people do, and I I'm all, you're singing to the choir with the, you don't want to air your dirty laundry and TMI, as we say, right? But
Yes.
if you are in fact keeping everything inside and you're falling apart, and there's such a thing as productivity and presenteeism at work, it isn't just that you're there, right? We can be there. You can take a shower, put the clothes on, drive to work, and sit at your desk or whatever you do, whether you're on an assembly line or you're, air traffic controller, you're whatever, every career from A to Z is affected. It is the one thing in life that does not discriminate, young, old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wealthy, not. Everyone is affected by divorce. It doesn't say, oh, only 30-year-old women will be getting divorced. No, it affects everybody, and it's very difficult to have that container where you have a thinking partner that's safe.
Now, is there a boundary of what is helpful or professional within the workplace?
Yes, that's where here's the thing where we started the conversation about just listening. If you notice that somebody is crying or angry or upset, and you're that type of person that wants to be a listener, maybe you're not. You could just say, I see you're upset. If you ever want to talk about it, let me know at lunch or something. But you're not looking like, what's the matter? Oh no, we're not looking to upset the person. We're looking to de-escalate it by showing empathy and compassion for whatever someone's going through. It could be a death in the family. It could be, I don't know, they got in a car accident. It doesn't always have to be divorce.
Right.
Know that divorce is a consistent problem.
Now, how do you balance being supportive as a coworker, or really as a business owner, or even a manager, and the need to have productive employees, just as advice, because I think that balance can be difficult.
It is, and that's where you make suggestions for resources, tools, solutions, other professionals that might be of guidance or assistance, where you're saying, I noticed that maybe your report wasn't as complete as it always has been, or giving you a hypothetical, whether that's a C-suite executive or somebody who's in, direct authority to the employee, or what about yourself? Anyone listening that is in HR or owns a business, small or large, no matter. Let's just face it, Heather, when your employees are doing a good job and others are like, not so, like something's wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you have intuition or you have a keen eye for being able to measure are they coming in on time? Are they leaving late? Are they productive? Are they energetic? Is there a certain passion that they have for their work? Or are they lackluster? Are they kind of living in that gray scale? And it's perfectly okay to make a comment about, are you okay? If there's something you need to talk about, trust me, I'm here. Or maybe we can get you that right professional to help. That type of casual, caring, genuine from the heart conversation goes a long way, because the employee hears they care about me.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier, when we were talking about from the organizational side, that you are in charge of the different coaches and trainers. How do you match people? And I think this is good just in general, because any of our listeners who are in the middle of this, or maybe know somebody who is in your workplace, what we're talking with Paulette today are the resources so that you don't lose your job, that you can maintain. And I think coaching can provide a wonderful part of that to help somebody through this process. How do you match the two? I mean, is it situational? Is it personality? I'm very curious.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with my years and years of personal and professional experience, being able to assess a situation. There is also an onboarding confidential process that I go through where I meet them confidentially one-on-one. We also have a book, a workbook, an audiobook, an online course, and group coaching. So they have that as part of the plan where the employer is providing that without the employer being involved. So it's a service that the employer is offering confidentially. There's zero ramifications or repercussions being involved in this, and they get the support and the tools and the resources they need. But I hope that made sense. But
it does, because and I just want to emphasize the confidentiality, and that's so important because
it is,
as you know, I mean, going through a divorce, you can lose a lot of friends by oversharing, and you can you could lose a lot of work colleagues, some respect, some of that trust capital. Like, you can wear people out, and it's not your intent. So the fact that this is, like you said, a confidential thing your employer's offering, but it's not your boss, like, that makes it so much more amazing, right? To have
raise the concept that your boss is going to sit down with you and start talking about your personal life. It's not that way at all. This is initiated from a concern about the company saying, I want my employees to get the help they need, regardless of what they're going through in their life. But when it comes to matching an employee, not in that group situation or the book and the workbook and the online course that I mentioned, but with one-on-one, we have trained professionals and coaches in high conflict, special needs, religious and cultural divorce, foreign languages. I only speak English, a little bit of Latin, that's it, tiny bit of French, LGBTQ, personality disorders, immigration issues, military, chronic illness, parent difficulties, estrangement from family members, etc., etc. Now, not everybody has that categorical divorce, but if they do, bingo, we have the professional to get them that exact professional resource they need. If it's a more, I'm going to say, general question, like a particular financial need, we're going to get them the right financial expert in their area to work with them. Maybe they need to decide if they need to sell the home. Can they refinance? All those nitty-gritty questions that a coach wouldn't be able to help with, but a particular professional like a CDRE, CDFA, and CDLP can.
That is, and there's so much in there that's so helpful. And
I know it's a lot.
It is a lot, but that when that's available, it's just a lot of the right professionals for the right person at the right time, which is key. As we've been talking about this whole thing, it's really, there's so much it's not just a one size fits all, but this is a perfect time for our second break. And listeners, please stay with us over the break and come back and listen to more with Paulette Rigo. And of course, we would love the opportunity to read your requests and questions on topics to follow up with soon. So please leave us a review with your comments and suggestions. It would be so very helpful, and we will be right back. Well, we are back from our last break. And again, today, I'm joined by Paulette Rigo. And in the last segment, we explored a lot, but we talked about supporting your employees as a business owner and what that could look like from the corporate side and what many benefits employees could expect and enjoy when that's available, and, how they can support them. But, we're going to talk on this segment a little bit more about special situations. Now, I am curious, Paulette, do you ever tailor like the sensitivity training, depending on special circumstances, like say infidelity or domestic violence, which is, obviously a very relevant topic?
Yes. We talked a little bit about the categories of which an expert really is an expert, right? I mean, if anyone tells you they know everything, I think you should run. You shouldn't quote me, but I don't know the answers to everything, Heather, but I have to say I know the people that do. And there's a lot of people that I need to have in my Rolodex, pardon the expression, because divorce affects every aspect of your life, and in many ways your health, every cell in your body. I also know many people get sick, or if they have an illness, it will exacerbate and kind of, you know, bloom or, you know, rear its ugly head. So inflammation or perhaps some other chronic condition will get worse because of the stress. So that condition or that situation, we're finding the right professional. But they have to also keep in mind that these professionals, some of them may be former law attorneys, financial advisors, mental health practitioners, and many other different types of professionals in those niches. And some of those professionals are also mental health practitioners that specialize in addiction and abuse and domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence. And October being, I know we're wrapping up October, I'm not sure when this is airing, but if you happen to not know that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, you know, I don't know the exact percentage, you might know better than I, Heather, and it might be different state to state, but what percentage of divorce cases do involve addiction or abuse, where they tend to be the ones that need to litigate or should litigate, right? Like all the way, like hard, you know, go, 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 because evidence and maybe witnesses, and there's conflict where there's a concern for someone's safety and the children's safety, and there may be custody issues, and there isn't, well, shall we call it transparency or cooperation in the divorce process. When there is cooperation in the divorce process, it usually is amicable and goes quite smoothly. If both parties cooperate, well, my goodness, you could get them in and out in no time. But how often does that happen? Now, if you have a partner that there's not a level playing field, emotionally, psychologically, as well as physical. And there are many different kinds of abuse: psychological, mental, emotional, physical, sexual, financial, and spiritual. So if you're in one of those situations where you feel controlled, and I'm going to use that word controlled instead of abuse, you likely will need a specialist to help you feel empowered and be safe and understand what you need to do that would be different in a situation where there isn't.
And, you know, do you see a different level of support that is necessary in those cases where there is domestic violence, that kind of control? Because, you know, you and I both know we've been in this field for a long time. That's different. That creates a whole nother level beyond the divorce for an individual, I think, and particularly with what kind of potential support they might need in the workplace.
Yeah, if somebody is in a marriage that for whatever reason, both parties have made the difficult, but, you know, mutual decision that they want to divorce, and they're aware of the finances, both parties, or they think they are, right? They're still cohabitating relatively amicably, or they're not, and they really do have the best interests of the children if there are children involved. You know, usually, you know, you can get through divorce pretty well. But if there is control and a feeling of, you know, being pounded down and like squelch and not being able to voice your opinion, and you're in the dark about your finances, maybe you're not able to look at the tax returns. Anytime you open your mouth and ask a question, there's criticism. It wreaks havoc on your self-confidence. And it's very difficult to go through a divorce when not only do you question your reality, you also question your ability to get through the divorce and make smart decisions based on the fact that you don't have any ability to voice what happened to you. You don't have the courage, the strength, the resiliency, and the support that you need to prop yourself up and get through it, because every time you have in your relationship, you have been criticized or worse. So yeah, they need a lot more mental, emotional, psychological support, mental health than most. Although I have seen those cases where people think, oh, this should be a piece of cake, and they fall apart after because the identity of their whole life is changed, and that's hard to accept for most.
Now, how would your support look different for infidelity situations?
Well, I do try to educate them that in most situations, you have to have significant evidence in order to prove that. In is that the reason that the divorce is occurring? Many people don't understand no fault divorce, could the concept of that. And I try to explain to them that there is no emotional justice in divorce. We don't get a blue ribbon because your spouse was unfaithful, and your spouse doesn't get a blue ribbon because you were, and you don't both get one because you both were. Whatever the situation is,
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate that a marriage fell apart, and perhaps infidelity was one of the reasons it did. I believe I've kind of narrowed it down to the top 21 reasons couples divorce. And I do have infidelity at the top in my book on page 6, but it does not mean that it's the number one reasons couples divorce. When there is an affair or unfaithfulness, whether that's I hate to use the expression, but why not, a one night stand, all the way to a 25-year affair, it still has a feeling of breaking trust. So now the couple and the person that is the recipient of the lack of trust or having had that trust broken feels betrayed. And they really
Mm-hmm.
need a sense of acceptance and acknowledgement. Sometimes you get that from the other spouse, sometimes you don't. But that particular person really needs a lot of support.
Um, Agree. Now, what about when spouses are working together? Is there anything specific you recommend in that situation?
Do you mean they own a business together?
Or they're just working together?
They just work together. Well, that's tricky. So now you have the complexity of, do we both, you know, forge forward and stay with the company and manage to act like two mature adults and behave ourselves and not, um, you know, sabotage each other's work or say unkind things to coworkers, and or are you better off maybe cutting loose and getting a new profession at a new job, or transitioning or transferring to a new company? That's a personal choice. I think both of those people need to decide how much animosity there is, and is that something that they're brave enough to handle. Some people are very mature about it and realize career first, family first. Let's see if we can be mature about this. If you own a business together, that's tricky. That sometimes can get into the equitable division of marital assets, right? And what's going to happen to that actual business. So that could be a little bit trickier with the emotional aspect, because it's not just the emotions and the practicality of it, but now you're also intertwining some finances, where if you're just working at the same business, it might not be as complicated.
Yeah, and that was really my thing, but I guess there isn't any answer to that. You got to figure it out yourself,
It's
right?
case by case. It
Yeah.
depends. Yeah. I would have to have that certain couple in front of me and do a lot of
Mhm.
what diagnosis or litmus testing to see how they feel about it. And as coaches, we ask a tremendous amount of questions to see if they themselves have the ability to foreshadow or look to the future about what they think the solution is. That's a lot of what coaching does. It's expert guidance and support as a thinking partner to help them come to the best decision for their case. Every marriage is unique. There's no two marriages alike. And then, as you know, there's no two divorces alike either.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Paulette. It's such great tips that you've given us today and things to think about, and particularly for our listeners going through these things. That is true. Not every situation is the same, and understanding there are so many great resources out there as well as various experts. Is knowing, in asking for what you need. So, Paulette, we thank you today. We've reached the end of our show. And for our listeners, you can find Paulette at betterdivorceacademy.com and divorcerightInc.com. And of course, we will have all her information linked below in the show notes. So again, thank you so much, Paulette.
Thank you, Heather. It was an honor and pleasure.
Thank you. And if you or someone you know is going through divorce or is thinking about a divorce, of course, reach out to us at floridawomensLawGroup.com. We also would love for you to join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce, where we are really trying to have positive conversations and elevate women who are going through divorce, maybe thinking about divorce or on the other side of divorce. The link will be below in the episode description. And we thank you for listening, and please leave us a review and let us know who you would like to be our next guest. Thank you so much. From being served to preparing for trial, Divorce 101 will prepare you end to end for the divorce process. I'm Heather Quick, attorney and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group. Join us over the next 6 weeks to feel empowered and educated about a complex and often challenging legal process. Our online course is designed to provide an overview of what to expect, what to prepare for, and offer guidance you may need to succeed and win at life. Over 6 weeks of video and additional resources, we are confident that you will finish our course feeling inspired and educated. Find out more at floridawomensLawGroup.com/divorce-101 or call us at 904-567-0121.